Welcome to the Redvee TV show, supported by Chapel House for the 2023 season. And on this week's show, we probably are pretty much going to go straight ahead to talking about Warrington because not a lot has happened. But before we do, housekeeping, Kevin.
Yes, we had a couple of people come back to us about our discussion regarding Tommy Makinson and was he the best ever Super League winger at Saints. And our good mate David Powell tweeted us and said it'd be interesting to see the tries per game that Anthony Sullivan had as well, because I've always said that Sully would be my my favourite team that I've seen. So, with help from the Saints Heritage Society website, I have literally picked the first bit of information I could get, so apologies if I've got this wrong. Do you want to have a guess? I've got 4 wingers in order. Do you want to have a guess at who comes out as the best tries per game record out of these 4 wingers?
Who are the 4 wingers?
Right, so you've got Tommy Makinson, obviously. We've got Anthony Sullivan, who I've just mentioned. We've got Darren Albert, and we've got Adi Gardner.
I am going to go number 1, Darren Albert.
Okay.
Number 2, Adi Gardner.
Yeah.
Number 3, Tommy Makinson. And number 4, Anthony Sullivan.
Well, you got one right, and that was Tommy Makinson. So, Adi Gardner, 173 tries in 286 appearances. This is Super League era. I've not just done Super League because I'm not trying to remember if a game against Leeds was in the Cup or whatever, and I've not got time to start looking at all that.
Why not, Kevin?
Because this is a hobby. It's not a
half a stats man.
Yeah. I'm half a Phil Clark. Yeah, so that's like 0.6 tries a game. Then it's Tommy Makinson, 192 in 311 appearances, 0.62 tries a game. Second, is Darren Albert, 88 tries in 124 appearances, 0.71 tries a game. And then top is Anthony Sullivan, 127 tries in 173 appearances, 0.73 tries a game. So if we just looked at tries, Anthony Sullivan is the more prolific, but it's about all round, and it is about memory as well, because when Super League started, I was 15. How old were you, David? 11?
12. 11.
Yeah.
12.
So we've got to be fair to ourselves. And I know Martin in the comments was saying that Tom van Vollenhoven's the best, and I completely appreciate that. But I've not seen Tom van Vollenhoven play. I didn't see much of Les Quirk play. There's wingers that you could probably go back through the time, and I didn't see them. And the final one is a comment on our YouTube. Somebody saying, I can't believe you didn't mention Alan Hunt. That's because in the Super League era, Alan Hunt mainly played centre. He may well have been a winger beforehand. In fact, he was. He was the first number that I got on the back of a shirt was number 2 because of Alan Hunt. But he played as a winger in Super League. There we go. That is our housekeeping done.
Yeah, the order I picked, I was trying to go generally. I went for Darren Albert first because I thought his average may be highest because of the shorter amount of appearances. Yep. So for me, that shows just how well Tommy Makinson's done.
Yeah.
And Adi Gardner. And I know we've got off Super League era, but even during the last 25 years, has the game changed where Anthony Sullivan was expected to be your prolific winger who scored tries, whereas now you'd expect your wingers to do the carries on the first and second tackle, or the best wingers do, like Tommy.
You've got your balance, haven't you? That nowadays your wingers do that dirty work of bringing the first and second runs out, Also, you've got the thing that Tommy Makinson can use the corner flag. That's not in touch anymore, which Anthony Sullivan wouldn't have had in his career. Now, also, athleticism probably comes in a little bit more, that you didn't really see the players diving in at the corner as much back in even the 2000s. You didn't see it, the early 2000s, you didn't see that. So there is the balance there. We've got to go with Super League, because it's fair to our memories and our ages. And I will completely get if people say, well, Alan Hunt was a great winger that I saw, and I'd have him ahead of either one that you two would. Anthony Sullivan's career beforehand, before Super League started, again, I completely get that. But for the whole thing of this conversation, it's been in Super League. Has Tommy Makinson been the best? And I think all round, you'd say yes. Because Tommy can play a couple of positions, does the hard yards, still scores tries, and is a genuinely nice bloke as well.
Talking of genuinely nice blokes, do you know who is a genuinely nice bloke?
Go on.
Ted Lasso.
Okay. Is he not a character?
Possibly so. All I know, he manages AFC Richmond, and if Wello continues to grow his hair as he has done, he is a moustache short of being his doppelganger.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
I seen the interview that they put out before the game last week, and I just want him to start using Ted Lasso phrases such as believe. If there's not a sign in the changing room on a yellow piece of card saying believe, which has been ripped in half and stuck back up, there should be.
Don't be giving people, imagine not be giving people ideas now. That'd be fantastic. Because we know Well's done it before, where he was giving Tommy Makinson what was it? It wasn't the Golden Boot, was it? And he was pushing for Tommy to give his name in the style of The Office. So we know there's a sense of humour there. And it wouldn't surprise me if you didn't see something like that appear, even if it's from somebody like Connie putting it up just for a laugh.
So yeah, it's just I can't see Wello now without seeing Ted Lasso. So right then, Kevin, we are straight on to this week. 7 wins in a row. We've narrowed the points difference or points scored or whatever it is to plus 13. Unfortunately, Catalan play Leeds this week, and Leeds have seen what the MRP are doing in terms of bans, with Callum Watkins and this week Brad Singleton getting banned for brushing players' hair, and have decided that they're having no part in this tackling thing for the rest of the season, and are just standing aside and letting the opposition walk through and score tries. So, not much hope this week.
I don't know who that's more of a go at, whether it's the MRP or whether it's Leeds. I mean, the MRP as well, and I've no problem with him not getting banned, but Nicholson of Warrington, in the minutes, was banned for a game. On the website wasn't, and then they amended the minutes to say, no, actually, he's not banned for a game. It's just...
Oh, so he's not banned, all right.
No, he's not banned, and I've no problem with that, but it just... You know, the Twitter account, the Amateur RL, perfect for them. Because a set of meeting minutes, I know from my line of work, you get them meeting minutes wrong and there's an inquest into them.
Yeah. And do you know what? The problem is people can't follow conversations on Twitter at the best of times. So when you're making mistakes, then people are going to pick up on them. People haven't been able to follow our tweet from last week, which was talking about it's a sad state of affairs in the sport when you have to see that once you've seen the minutes, you then have to go looking for what the incident was to actually see it and see why a player is being banned. But then didn't get it when we posted the video of a Pape's ban and said, non-ban, and said, how is a hip drop tackle just a caution when Morgan Hall's got 5 games? And they're referring to our tweet last week. Yeah, that's the innocuous stuff that no one has seen, not a hip drop.
Yeah.
We're not talking about you can't look at incidences in games. What we're saying is the ones such as maybe Brad Singleton's one or Callum Watkins from the week before, where nobody has mentioned it. It's a nothing instance in a game, and all of a sudden the MRP are banning players for them. That's where it's going wrong.
Yeah, and the ones that kind of made me laugh a little bit more with that are the faceless ones, the ones who don't want to put the name or the face to their opinion. Listen, that's their prerogative, but to me, just it kind of nulls what they've got to say. And if it's an opinion on rugby league, we're not a faceless account. I mean, there's me and you look after the socials, but there's more than that who get involved with doing either this or little bits that we'll do, especially like towards the end of the season when we're doing like Player of the Year and stuff like that. But we're not faceless. And those who put the name to it, fair enough. And you can tend to have a decent discussion with them. Yeah, it's just, I suppose that's just.
It's funny when you say about people going on about the abuse referees take, but then are quite happy to try and dish it out to others.
Yeah.
From anonymous accounts. All I'll say in that one is, listen, we're a Saints fan account. We're not there to put forward the defence of others, of other clubs. We are there to put across our side of the arguments, which we do. We are happy to debate with anyone. Whether you disagree or agree with us, tweet us and we'll have the debate, we'll have the discussion. We probably won't end up agreeing, but we'll have the back and forth. The accounts on Twitter that I can't stand, and there's quite a lot of, I'll dare mention it, Lee fans at present who don't want to have a discussion. They just want to go, you can't have an opinion. And have a go at you for having an opinion. No, have an opinion on your own and we'll have a discussion.
Yeah. Well, it's fair enough. It's fair enough because, listen, that's what it's all about. It's all about having discussions, having, like, was it Dawn, the Wigan fan, who said she agreed with us and then was going hosing herself down. And it's great to see like that little bit of chat that you can have. You can have a bit of a laugh with fans. Agree and not agree.
I'll mention one. There's a Salford fan on Twitter, a lady, who is passionate.
Yeah.
And I want to probably say doesn't agree with us.
Yeah.
And our viewpoint on certain instances, probably involving Salford, the Salford team, but we'll put a point of view across.
Yeah.
And that's what you respect. I have that all day.
Yeah. And while we're having this rant, I also like the ones who, like, you get people who Saints will do what is deemed a bad challenge, and they'll be like, "Oh, why are people talking up about this?" Well, ask us about it. Speak to us. I had that, and I'm not going to mention the Leeds account's name, but I think it was James Bell did one that didn't look great, and I said at the time in the game that it didn't look great, and that's not from this week. It's a couple of weeks ago. And they came back to me with, "Oh, you can't be saying this after you've been complaining all week about what happened to your players after Lee." And it's like, yeah, but what you don't know is I've already said at the game to the people who are around me that it looks a bad challenge. And all of a sudden it's, oh, well, there was another one later on in the game. Great. I'll see that because I was doing bits. I was doing player ratings at the time, missed it. And then you watch it back. But yeah, there's just a couple who think they're clever. I'm not saying we're clever, but just debate with us. I feel like this rant.
There was the other one saying, "Oh, I never seen Redvee talking about the referee's abuse, apart from the 20 minutes we did on here discussing it."
Yeah, exactly.
I think the worst thing that's happened on social media, especially on Twitter, not calling it X, is where previously you only saw the accounts that you followed. Unfortunately, now there's the For You page that it defaults to. So when some random Leaf fan tweets us, the algorithm means that every Leaf fan starts seeing our odd tweets and doesn't see the full flow of a conversation. And that's what's ruined Twitter.
Yeah.
There we go.
Anyway.
That said, I know we discussed Pape only getting a caution for the hip drop and comparing it to the the less contentious one that was done by Morgan Knowles, who got 5 games, which was more of a, for me, less malicious or less, more accidental, I want to say, or less obvious. It wasn't about a Pape being banned for 5 games. Do I believe a hip drop should be 5 games? Absolutely not. The point we were making is the whole point of issuing bans for the hip drop is that it should be a deterrent to get it out the sport. It shouldn't be for the consequence of the 1 in 20 that result, or 1 in 100 that end up in injury. If you want a deterrent to remove it from the sport, make it basically say, right, if you are found guilty of doing a hip drop, it's a 1-game ban across the board, no matter what injury is caused. You can't have, and I will argue this till the cows come home, you can't have injury dictating how long the ban should be, because players are all committing the same offence.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I completely agree. You can't. I don't think you can. It's a very dangerous thing to bring injury into it.
I know I've seen people have compared it to in a criminal court, where saying, well, if 10 people get stabbed and 1 dies, well, it's a murder charge rather than attempted murder, and it's a longer sentence. It's not a criminal court. It's a sports field. You're trying to take injuries out of the game from a specific tackle, make the offence a specific length of time.
Yeah. And if you do it again, you get another game added. If you do it again, you get another game added.
Do I think it should be more than a caution? Yes. Do I think it should be 5 games? No.
Not unless you've done 4 others in the season.
Yeah. Even if it's right, you've done a hip drop, it's 1 game. If you specifically repeat it, next time it'll be 2.
Yeah.
Next time it'll be 3. Do it that way. That means players will learn the lessons.
Yeah.
But for someone to get a caution and no further action purely because Morgan Knowles was lucky enough to not to twist the wrong way doesn't seem right. Equally, there's been a couple this season for Saints, hasn't it? It was against Huddersfield, the cannonball tackle, the most blatant cannonball tackle you'll see, and that got no further action. It just feels like we're being refereed under different rules. But no, sorry, not refereed under different rules, MRP'd under different rules.
Yeah.
I seen there's a Wigan fan, and going on to Wigan fans, Mike Lavelle, and he basically said he'd like a situation where the only things that are dealt with by the MRP are things that are referred to or referred by the referee in their report, and allow the referees to actually referee the game. I'd have no issue with. I'd take it one further and allow clubs to cite, but we've got to get away from this MRP sitting in a dark room of a weekend, rewatching frame by frame to look for things to ban people for.
Re-reffing a game.
Right.
Rant over. You might have put them little times on YouTube, you know, so it splits it up into categories. So if people want to see when we actually start a preview for this game, which I think kicks off in about an hour of how long you've been going on for there.
Round 1, round 2, round 3, match preview. Right, here we go. Considering we had nothing to talk about, we've been on one. Squad news, and that lovely hunk of a specimen, not Conrad Harrell, Big Curtis Sirenen, is back in the squad with the right squad number on, number 16.
Yeah, there was a little mistake on the very, very first editions of this, wasn't there?
It's just seeing if people are still awake, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Just making sure that people are taking notice. But yeah, good to see Curtis back in. Obviously, George Delaney drops out after he failed his HIA during the league game. It's the second HIA George has had this season. He passed one against Warrington, but didn't come back onto the field because the game was about to end. And he's failed this one. So, you know what? Wellows said this. I've thought it. Is it in some ways a benefit getting the young man a week off, even though he doesn't want to?
Yeah, bit disappointing that Big Dan has been advised by the neurologist to have another week off following his HIA suffered at Wakefield, because he would have been the obvious option to come back into the squad. Yep. As it is, does Curtis Sirenen come onto the bench? And does Sione Matautia do minutes propping alongside LMS off the bench?
Yeah, I'd have thought that either Matautia may well start in the second row, but we will use. I'm going to assume that it's pretty much the same team as last week. I can't see there being changes apart from Delaney for Sirenen. Matautia may well start in the second row, and then we will use Sam Royal this week and bring him on. So Sione might do the first half an hour in the second row, move into the middle, have a bit of time off, come back on in the middle because Sam Royal can do a job there. I don't know if that's a bit of a risk, but I can almost see that being the thing. I think we're going to try and get Curtis kind of his minutes built up rather than throw him in from the start and potentially aggravate that hamstring into being a season ender.
Wes Bruins in the squad. We're taking him along to the Holloway Jones to visit his new home. Warrington will be hoping that there's no way he can rip up his contract after he sees us put 60 on them.
Oh dear. Oh, that's the clipped bit. That's going to be the clipped bit. Why have you said that? You said 16, did you then?
No, 60.
Oh dear.
I'll just claim it was a mistake, like the squad numbers.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I know we're going to get onto Wire and they've got players out this week, but given it's likely to be 71 years without a trophy in a couple of weeks' time, given the remoteness of the chances of them actually winning anything, is this essentially their grand final? They must be pinching themselves playing Saints in mid-September. They must be thinking they're onto the playoffs or something.
You're proper going after me now, aren't you? You've had your rant.
Well, listen, we discussed it last week. We were saying how Lee are becoming a bit of a rivalry. Warrington is like the ones you just give a little rub and a pat on the head to and have for comedy value. They never change. But equally, could they be a banana skin this week?
Absolutely, they could. And we'll get onto the squad in a minute, but absolutely they could. Both teams have got players out. Obviously, as being Hopewati, Parsi, Walmsley, Wingfield, Dan Norman, George Delaney, and Conrad. I think they've got a few out when we come on to them as well. So it's not a given. We need to be more ruthless in attack. We need to score more points than we have been doing. And I'm not just saying that on the basis of covering points difference. It's the fact that, look at last week, Lee scored with their first bit of field position. You can't afford to leave points out on the pitch because we probably should have been 2, maybe 3 tries ahead by the time Lee got their first bit of field position. It is a banana skin because you know what? Sometimes the team that you see as the little rub on the head, pat them and send them on the merry way. Sometimes they do turn you over. You'd hope not this week with the news that they're missing the most influential halfback. This is where someone comes in, makes the home debut, and has a complete wow of a game.
Yeah, it's just. It does feel like out of the next 2 games, this is the one that I worry about more than Hull at home. Hull at home, you could quite easily see flip-flops on, Saints putting 60 on them in front of the 50 travelling fans.
I think the only issue with that is obviously if Hull turn up like they did in the league game when they absolutely banjoed us. Now, I think that was a mistake by the coaching staff. I'll say it on team selection, which kind of did for us a little bit there. If we turn up like that again, then that whole game becomes another one that you think, why have we turned up like this?
But equally, you can also see Saints putting 50 on them.
Yeah.
Hull are the sort of side who could capitulate. I'm not sure we'll do that this week. Now we're 13 points behind a Catalan team who should absolutely batter Leeds. We've got to keep on the tails of it slightly if you want points difference to come into it. Otherwise, we're going into it hoping Salford do us a favour last game.
Yes. Yeah. I think we're almost at that stage anyway, I'd say.
How many
Not
points,
with Catalan.
Kev, how many points, for it to go down to points difference to overhaul Catalan, assuming we both win our last game, both win this week, how many points can we be afford to be behind them going into that last game? 20? To give our team to have a chance?
I was going to say, you can't be getting into the late 20s, 30s. You can't be.
Because if it's 20 before next week, let's say they beat Salford by 10. Saints would have to do 30 plus on Hull. And it starts getting on the realms of unlikely.
Yeah, it does. And that's where as you said, we could stick 50 on Hull. Current weeks or recent weeks have said we probably wouldn't because we've not been sharp enough, clinical enough. Listen, I'm hoping that one of the last 4 games, so 2 each for Catalan and Wigan, one of them is a proper upset with Wigan having to go to Lee. You'd hope that Lee still need to finish fourth rather than fifth, and still need the points to make sure. Especially with Salford. Salford have said they're in lockdown this week because they've got a sickness bug.
The Red Robin podcast said, "Yep, we believe you."
Yeah.
And do you know what? That's why we were celebrating Salford's win.
Yeah.
We weren't celebrating Salford's win because it was against Warrington. We were celebrating Salford's win because it means that they'll play Catalan needing a result.
Mm.
And we didn't tweet it, but again, people don't read conversations. But there we go.
Exactly. That's why we need Leeds to still need points at the last for their last game of the season, and hope that someone can do us a favour along the way. So if we can just kind of tootle along and pick up the wins, that's enough.
The Warrington squad, Kev, glad to see that they are using their star player Darryl Clark as their main header picture before he moves to a big club. The big news there is George Williams is missing and he is replaced in the squad by Leon Hayes. Some Saints fans would say Leon who, but not us. He's a highly rated halfback. Scored Warrington 75,000 points in Super League. Only about 35,000 behind Saints, I would presume. Well, not Super League, all time. Highly rated halfback. Captained Lancashire in a 3-0 Origin victory. Is probably the only player that's ever come through their academy and made first team with hopes.
With hopes, was that?
Yeah.
That's it. There's a couple from their academy in that now. And in all seriousness, it's good to see, and it's about time.
Yeah.
It's about time. I think I said this, was it 18 months ago? I think Warrington would take they probably wouldn't like it at the time, but bubbling along in 5th, 6th, 7th, if it meant that in the next 5 years they had a bunch of young lads who were hungry to play for him, who'd come through the academy and would then push them on. And I still think Warrington fans would take that. That they knew that definitely in the next 3 or 4 years they were going to have a complete spine of players who came through their academy, who cared about the shirts, who were fully invested in it, I think they'd take that, because sometimes you see the signings that they make and you wonder why have you done that, and like the timing of contract extensions, why have you done that at the start of the season? Why have you not left it till a little bit later on? But yeah, Williams missing out with a thigh injury. Apparently, it's one that he needed a rest. It sounds a little bit like Morgan Knowles missing Wakefield because he just needed a rest. I'm glad that it's happening this week, but that does mean that Leon Hayes will probably throw in a
Worldy.
proper performance.
It's yin and yang, though. You're happy that George Williams is missing out, but unfortunately, Gil Dudson is as well.
And we won't see the Metautias facing off against each other either.
He's minding Sione's kids that night. That's why he's having a week off. Can't both be playing at the same time.
Fair enough. But yeah, they're missing a couple. Because they don't put the numbers on, I'm not wasting time going through Warrington's squad, and they'll do it in alphabetical order. But obviously, Williams, Matautia, Dudson, and Joe Bullock seem to be the ones that are missing from that. It is. I'm sorry. I know people will say you're being a little bit magnanimous. But this is a tougher game than you think, because they'll be. What are you doing, trying to get into Darryl Clark here?
No, I'm just trying to see if Darryl's still in the box.
Yeah, it'll still be one of them games that we'll need to be somewhere near our best to win.
Yes. And with that, Kevin, I'm going to ask you for a prediction.
Saints by 40.
Saints by 34.
Does that mean we're adding up all the points that we've left on the field in the past couple of games, and they're all going to be scored on Friday night?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Should have said Saints by 60, shouldn't I?
Either way, it could be clipped.
Well, they've got to have something to celebrate this season, because they won the league in March. So
this is true. This is true. I think.
Remember when it was all about Saints' demise?
Yeah.
How's that one working out for you? And do you know what? Listen, we might not win it this year. I've said to you, I think it's pretty open. Any one of four, Catalan, Wigan, Saints, or even Lee. If they went on to win the grand final, would there actually be any shock to it? Probably not, which is what we need. We need a competitive league. Would it be shocked if Wire beat us? More so than them, than that happening.
And I'm completely missed what you said then.
Don't worry about it.
The very end bit.
Yeah, I'd be more shocked about Wire beating us this Friday.
Oh,
no, I'm just winding them up, but yeah, we'll see.
We'll see. Well, they
what I do know is the away end will be bouncing.
Oh, it will. It will. But they need the win, don't they? Warrington need results here to ensure that they stay in that top six.
Yeah. Just to finish before we go, I thought it was a little bit of omen that Lidl are having French Food Week. They are selling snails. That is an omen, Kevin, that there is no need for me to go to Perpignan to get my fill of the snails. So I bought them, I've ate them, and Saints are doing second.
Yeah. I will take that Saints are doing second, but you're a horrible, horrible man. Not for me, then.
If we finish top, will you try one?
No.
I fed them to Redvee Junior and she liked them.
Well, good on her. No, thank you.
Okay. Right then, we will catch you on Friday evening for the post-match instant reaction following a Saints 34-point margin. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.